I have this audio interface USB with analog outputs, and it's really good, especially because it has a tone control, which I like to give the music a bit of flavor, but it has a flaw. This volume pot is extremely noisy, especially in this range here where it's normally used. So I need to replace that, and I couldn't find a way of getting this type of pot by itself, but on AliExpress I found the same looking thing attached to some boards, so we can probably use that. Let's take a look inside this thing to see how easily we can desolder all of this stuff to replace it. I have already been in here before because for some reason they use a power supply separate to the data, and I think I worked out why. Oh, I joined them together so that you can just power it from the computer, but the problem is if you plug it into the USB port, it causes such an inrush that the port normally locks out, so it has to be connected to the computer during boot up. So that's probably why they had them separate. So I'm not sure if I should keep it like that or not, since we've got it open now. So I'm going to take all this apart. I need to undo those nuts. See if I can find a socket that will fit. The problem is the shaft. No sockets. The shaft can't fit down the middle of the socket. Pliers instead. I quite like this unit, it works really well. The sound quality is acceptable to me, and it was pretty cheap. You can see the part number there if you want to buy one. It's just the volume pot is no good. Let's try and desolder it. So it's got a switch in it, but again, it's no good. So it says it's a B503 50K. So these are both the same. These are B50K. It should be a good option, and I think I'll put in this one, the one without the switch, because there's no point in having a switch. So we've got this desoldering tool here. Unfortunately they use lead-free solder on this, so we're going to have to wet it a bit with some fresh solder before we suck. Wet it with some lead solder, get some good lead in there so that it can flow nicely. And then the holes feel quite tight. It's a solder sucking tool. It has a vacuum pump, which is foot pedal operated. And I think the problem is that tip is just a little bit too small. That's annoying. Wonder if we can do it another way and just flood this whole thing and heat it all up in one go. Let's try that. And then we'll just unblock the pins. And get it started. Be very careful we don't munt the holes in the process of doing this. Okay, we got it out. Looks like we didn't destroy the through holes in the board, so that's a bonus. And now we just got to suck them out. So the holes are clean. So the next one to go in. Holes are clean. So now we got to get the one out of this. See how that goes, whether it can be sucked out. Solder looks fairly fresh on this. Maybe they use lead solder. I've got another tip for this, but it doesn't quite fit properly, and it's probably a bit too big. I had a lot of trouble finding replacement tips for this tool. Problem is they're just hanging on by just the smallest amount. They're a really tight fit in this circuit board. I wonder if this one would come out easier. Probably the same deal, isn't it? Let's see, if this one comes out easier, we'll use it, but we'll just bypass the switch. That's a little Class D amplifier. Probably a lot easier to desolder things. I don't think this is blocked. There is a tool for making sure the path is clear. Putting some fresh solder on there and then making sure to hold it in for a while, wiggle the leg backwards and forwards, then suck it out. That seems to be clearing it out. Still doesn't want to budge. These switch legs also need redoing. We probably wrecked the pot in the process. Okay, we got it out. Now, yeah, there's one. So we did wreck the board a little bit, ripped out part of a through hole. Let's solder that back in to the amplifier board and we'll see how that works. Just make sure this is cleaned out, because if you turn it off with the blockage in it, it becomes very difficult to unblock. And then we'll squeeze this into here. There's still a bit of crust on that leg. So we'll insert that nice and flat. All the legs look the same length, so I probably haven't wrecked any of them, ripped them out. It's sitting nice and flat. Okay, now I'm going to link out the switch because I want it to just work all the time without a switch. We'll grab a little bit of cut off component leg from the stash and we'll just solder that across and then cut it off. Like that. Done. So now we'll put it back. I suppose we'll just put it back together without testing it. It's going to work, isn't it? Find out. Just screw back all this stuff. Because it's annoying to plug into the computer, I only want to do it once if I can help it. When I have to take it off again after testing it, and then I need to get a darker backdrop so that the exposure is better. Or do I need to manually set the exposure? I thought it was already pretty manual. Is that better? Could be better. These will now have to be set. The position was somewhere like that, I think. Can't remember exactly. Yeah, it would have been better to use the one without a switch, so that you get the full range on an annoying little board. Anyway, well, the camera's nice and bright now, so that's a good thing. Now let's put this back in. It's got a track to slide in. Great. Short video. Good.